You are writing your lit review, so I want to give you a few tips that I've found helpful as I've written several. Um, so let me start with an analogy. I have a little garden plot in my backyard, and I have tomatoes. The tomatoes grow up. They're about 5 feet tall right now, and I have various tomatoes set. But a lot of times what tomatoes do is they send out a sucker out of the joint between the main stem and a leaf, and that sucker becomes another main stem. Too many of those, and it gets too leafy and blocks the sun, and so I have to every once in a while go out there and trim off those suckers so that I have a productive main stem and plenty of fruit. I also have some sweet peas that grow up the fence in my very small plot, and I have a couple of cucumber vines. These plants have tendrils that they wrap around, and then they go this way or that way, and the tendrils kind of veer them one way or the other. So sometimes I have to trim the tendrils and pull the vine over here so it goes up this support, this stick, or this prop, or this part of the fence to distribute things around. So it's all, the trimming of the suckers, the tomato suckers, and the trimming of the pea and cucumber tendrils helps me maintain a healthy garden. If you've done gardening, you know a little bit about how that works. So as you're in the literature, you're doing a literature search, you're going to find a lot of articles, and you're going to find a lot of interesting things. You're going to be making notes not only about content and variables and constructs, but also about ways of doing research. You're going to find an article, for example, that has a particularly interesting research methodology, and you're going to make notes about that, and it could be really insightful. In that same article, you may find that their findings are particularly pertinent to one aspect or other of your own research. You may find the background section they do up front, or the brief lit review they include, opens up some concepts and some authors and some research that you had not previously found. So you'll find all sorts of suckers and tendrils, some of them pertinent to your research and that you can train up and use to create a healthy plant, and others that are very interesting, but you won't be able to use particularly in this project. So after you gather a lot of the literature from your lit search, you're going to have to do some trimming of tendrils and suckers. A lot of it is very interesting, and part of your conversion to a scholar practitioner from just a really good practitioner to a scholar practitioner is that you find yourself interested in a lot of things, asking questions, and so you'll find a lot of very interesting things. But at some point in your writing of your lit review, you have to trim off a lot of very interesting tendrils and suckers because they're not pertinent to having a very healthy lit review for this particular project. They may come in handy later. They may be things you want to explore later. They may contribute to your overall learning and development, and these are all good things. But so my first piece of advice is don't be shy about trimming tendrils and suckers as you focus your lit review on the particular areas you need to cover. The other piece of advice that I would suggest is that you read really good lit reviews. Now, you've already read several, but I say that while you're writing your own lit review, stop every once in a while and reread even, or find a new lit review of high quality because as you read the lit review, you will see how they structured it, what they did in the intro, what they covered, what really worked for you as a reader. So you'll know how to craft your own research lit review also. So do that periodically. Go back, pause in your writing, and go back and read a really good one, and it will give you ideas about how to make your own better. It is a genre. Writing a lit review is a particular genre, and most of us didn't read a lot of lit reviews before we came into the doctoral studies arena, and so it's a fairly new genre for us. So the more you read, the more quality pieces of it that you read, the better you'll be able to write one. So the third thing that I suggest that you do is reverse outlining. So in the Maki book, you read about first you write to understand. So you're writing to explore your own understanding and to see what it is that you know. You're putting your ideas on paper. You're trying to make them flow in a certain way so that you can see what is it that I know about this. Um, and then you shift into once you get your ideas there, a writing to be understood. You revise and you make it readable, and you make it flow better. You draw the reader in and you craft something that others will read. Reverse outlining helps you towards the end of your writing to understand part, where you have a lot of ideas on paper. Maybe you've crafted it to some degree into a flow. You've got a pretty good draft of at least a section. Reverse outlining means that you go back through, and some of you've done this before, but is a really good exercise for a lit review that tends to get long and overextended and windy. And so what you do in the reverse outlining is go into each paragraph, say, what's the main idea of this paragraph? I do it in the margin. I say, okay, what's the main idea of this paragraph? If I read a paragraph and I cannot discern what the main idea is, there's a problem with that paragraph. So reverse outlining helps me identify those paragraph problems. But then if I say, okay, here's the main idea of this paragraph, paragraph 2, what's the main idea? This is it. And then after I do that over the whole essay, then I can go back and look at that outline. What are the main points and how do they flow? What is the logic of the flow of those main points? I'll show you a really good resource on reverse outlining. I'll include the link here. So go and look at it. Basically, the reverse outlining, you start with a complete draft. You construct the outline by discerning what the main idea of each paragraph is, and then you number your list for ease of reference. So basically, you can answer these questions about your own writing. Does every paragraph relate back to your main idea? Where might the reader have trouble following the order of your ideas? Do several of your paragraphs repeat one idea? That's what I find in my own writing a lot, that I circle back and say the same thing here that I said up here, and I don't necessarily mean to do that. Does one paragraph juggle several topics so that it's not real focused and coherent? Are your paragraphs too long, too short? So these are some of the questions that you can answer if you do some reverse outlining after you get a pretty good first draft of any section of your lit review. So those are my 3 tips real quickly. I want to get this to you so that you can have a little bit more input. You have the Maki book. I have a newer version. It's very good. You probably have version 2, edition 2. You have the Terrell book, has some good, although fairly oversimplified ideas about the lit review. But it's a good start, but you need to dig deeper into the other resources that I gave you. Try these 3 things. So lop off the tendrils and suckers. Read really good lit reviews periodically, regularly. Go back to a really good lit review and read it again, or find another really good one. They can also contribute to your own lit review if it's in your topic. And the final one is reverse outlining. So try those 3 things.